Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Sears. I'm a clinical psychologist and I do a lot of work and a lot of writing on mindfulness. So what I'd like to do today is talk about what mindfulness is and how we can use it to deal with stress. I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to deal with stress in a real and concrete and a practical kind of way. You know, stress is just a part of our lives in modern society, right? It would be easy for someone to say, yeah, let's just get rid of stress. Let's just do less and let's relax more and exercise more and eat better and get more sleep. And of course, all those are really important things to do, but those of us with jobs and families and crises going on, you know, that's really tough to do. So we need more than that. We need some tools to deal with our stress. So first of all, what is mindfulness? Really, mindfulness just means paying attention. And it's a counter to that tendency we have to sort of drift off in our heads and even to do things on sort of an automatic pilot kind of a basis. You know, it's so easy to just not even notice, to get lost in what we're doing, and then the days drag on and time flies by and we're barely even present in our lives. So by paying attention, first of all, we can notice more the good things that we do have in our lives. But attention's also going to be important if we're dealing with problems. I want to know more what's really going on. And in fact, what's going to be important is teasing apart what are the thoughts that are here in my head about this problem? What are the emotional reactions that I'm having? What am I doing in a reactionary kind of way that might not help the situation? Sometimes our thoughts and our emotions and our behaviors even can make things worse than they already are, and we may have enough to deal with. So first we need to pay attention. First we need to know, what is it that's going on, and is this working for me? So let me apply this a little bit more concretely. So 5 steps to notice when you're getting stressed or overwhelmed or anxious, or maybe a depression is coming on. The very first thing really is to notice that it's happening, right? We get so busy and we're so overwhelmed, we start to think, oh, the last thing I need is to get overwhelmed with stress. I'm just going to push on harder. And of course, that's one of the worst things you can do, because then it just spirals from there. So one of the first things you can do is simply take a break, take a breath, when you notice that stress is starting to come on. So even if you're in the middle of a busy day, even to stop and take one breath, sort of a mental break. And it's best if you can do this from what's called the diaphragm. Do it from your belly, because often when we get stressed out, we start breathing from the chest and we breathe more shallowly. And your breathing is actually intimately tied in with your stress response system. So literally, by breathing from the belly, you activate the vagus nerve and you kick up what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. So just slowing the breath down, taking a little bit deeper breath throughout the day will by itself actually physically slow you down, but also gives you sort of that mental pause, because we get so caught up in that go, 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 what's next. So this brings us back into the moment that we're in and slows down our stress response system. Now the second thing that you can do concretely when you notice that you're starting to get overwhelmed is to come to your senses. And what I mean by that is to literally pay attention. What do you see right now? What are you hearing right now? What are you feeling right now? Because very often stress is made worse by where our thoughts go. Oh my gosh, what if this never ends? I can't believe this is happening again. This reminds me of that thing that happened a couple years ago. You know, sometimes the thinking helps us. Sometimes it just tends to spiral and doesn't help us. So when you notice that the thinking is not really helping you, instead of fighting with the thoughts, just bring your attention back to what you're noticing in your senses. So literally just come back to your senses, because that's what you're experiencing in this moment. Now, you don't want to escape and try to avoid problems, but one of the things that happens is when I bring my attention to the present moment senses, there's actually less room in your brain for worries and ruminations, at least the kind that are stuck there. So it's a way of sort of resetting yourself. And then when you're in a better place, you may go back to think about how you might actually deal with the problem. Now, in that same sense, number 3 suggestion is to step back from the situation, right? When you notice that I'm really starting to get stressed out, whenever you can, even if it's just to slip off to the bathroom or just mentally step back a little bit, see if you can get a big picture, right? Our thoughts tend to be really powerful, our emotions too, and it's like we're stuck inside the thoughts, right? Oh, what if this never gets better? I can't believe I did that. I'm never going to get better. So when you can learn to step back from those thoughts, you can see, wow, I'm having thoughts that I'm no good or that it's never going to get better. So that probably means I'm getting stressed out and overwhelmed. So instead of answering these thoughts and fighting with these thoughts and getting all caught up in them, I can sort of step back from them and just notice them. Even emotions, right? Emotions are very powerful, of course. But when you can recognize, wow, anxiety is here right now, I better take care of myself, or I can just allow it to deliver its message and pass away when it's ready to do that. That's a much different attitude than getting anxious about my anxiety or afraid of my fear or stressed out about my stress or sad about my depression or hurting because of my pain. I can let it be there. It's not easy, but I can at least learn to step back from it a little bit with practice instead of struggling with it. And it's probably bad enough what you got to deal with already without adding on all the struggle that we tend to get into. So you can just step back a little bit. Now, the number 4 suggestion is to watch out for judgments. Now, judgments are a good thing, right? I need to make a judgment about stuff to see, is this going to be good for me? Might this hurt somebody else? I need to make judgments. That's a good thing. But what gets us in trouble are the constant, non-stop judgments that our brains tend to do. So no matter what I'm doing, I may have a judgment. Am I doing this very well? Could I be doing this better? Why can't I do this faster? All these thoughts and judgments interfere with your experience of the moment, right? If you're trying to do something and at the same time you're judging yourself on how you're doing it, you're probably not going to do it very well. So just notice when those judgments come up, even with stress reduction techniques, right? I don't think I'm doing this very well. Okay, there's a judgment coming up. You're just doing it. So set the judgments aside. You're not going to stop the judgments. You probably don't want to. Sometimes we need those judgments. But notice when they're happening instead of those automatic judgments, and practice just sort of setting them off to the side. Okay, there's another judgment. Let me set that off to the side and come back to what I'm doing right now. So watch for those judgments. And number 5, the final suggestion, is to remember to reevaluate your priorities. In other words, remember what is important to you in your life, in the big picture of things. What's important to you? It's so easy to get caught up in details and I got to get this done and I got to do that we start to forget, wow, what's this all about? What's really important to me? What are my values? When I can bring those back to mind, it puts things in perspective, right? If I remember that that family is one of my values, spirituality, learning, whatever it happens to be, then it gives me a new direction, a reminder. We can put up with a lot of stuff when we know it's for a purpose. And too often we get so caught up in all the problems that we forget to think about our purpose or our real meaning or what's really important to us. Now, if you're really stressed out, you may literally have forgotten about what's important to you, or you may have trouble coming up with those things that are really important to you, which is a good sign that you need to make some time to reevaluate that. And that puts everything in perspective. You can put up with some stress if you know it's for a good reason or a big purpose. But also we need to nourish ourselves. So instead of just managing stress, we need to also build what's called resilience, our ability to bounce back, to let things roll off of us. So take that time for yourself to do some hobby, to take a walk, to do something pleasurable to you, and to give yourself permission to do that, because you've got to take care of yourself in order to get anything else done. So as you keep this in mind, remember too, all these suggestions I made are a practice. So you need to practice them. Your mind becomes like what it's exposed to. So if you're exposing your mind all day long to problems and crises and work and challenges, your mind's going to start to feel and think that way. So you need to take some time and even find time within the busy day. As we said, stop and take a breath. Come to your senses. Step back, get some perspective. Watch out for judgments and learn to relate to them differently, and reevaluate your priorities. So if you can remember those, and even just this one question, what do I need for myself right now? Or how can I best take care of myself right now? It'll put things in perspective, and it'll make your days go a lot more smoothly.